when we don't know something and we have limited information, our fear levels are greater. I'm not minimizing anything, but the more you know about a thing, the less you fear it if what you know can put you at ease. There are some people that are just frightened, and nothing wrong with you being frightened. Some people are terrified. You really shouldn't be terrified. You're in your house. You don't have to wear a mask in your house. When you're driving somewhere to go somewhere, you don't have to wear your mask. When you walk outside your door, getting in your car, driving, you're driving for 10 minutes, 20 minutes to get somewhere, you don't have to have the mask on. It's nobody around you. It's just you in your car, or if it's you and somebody that live with you in your house, you don't have to have the mask on. Now, if you picked up somebody that's not in your household, sure, put your mask on. But I'm just saying, don't have a false sense of security that the masks work. Unless it's rated that N95 and some other higher ratings, that's basically a courtesy, so that when you do sneeze or when you do cough, it limits the projection of the droplets. Okay? If somebody else is sneezing, they're wearing a mask. And if you within range and you get a droplet on your clothing, the mask is not going to keep that droplet from coming through unless it's a certain grade. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. But it's better to have something. If it's a scarf, this is what they're telling you. And I received that, and we should receive that. But I want you to be at ease about this thing. When I say about at ease, if you're following guidelines, if you're doing what's supposed to be done, don't be afraid. Don't be terrified. Just be careful. As long as you're being careful and you're not being terrified. And I just think I need to emphasize that because so many are terrified. Now, Dr. John Barry, he wrote the book on the Spanish flu. And let me just read a few things that he said. At that time, 1/3 of the planet, approximately 1/3, that's right, let me say this right. There were 500 million that got sick. 1/3 of the planet at that time. The population wasn't what it is right now. Watch this. 700,000 died in America. 700,000. 1918. That's a bunch. And they're projecting 60,000 or less to die from this corona or COVID-19. 750,000. That's a lot of people. Just in America. Worldwide deaths were 50 to 100 million. They do not have accurate, but it is estimated as high as 100 million, but they know at least 50 million died. And so there are different numbers that it could be up to 100 million. If you adjust that to today's population, say for instance, if that Spanish flu had happened today, what they estimate would be 420 million people worldwide. 420. Wow, that would have died. Now that's incredible. 220 million people would have, and I want to say this right, because I wrote the notes down. If you adjust the 100 million that they estimate died in 1918, you adjust that to today's population, that would be 220 million people die to 420 million. So that's astronomical. If the Spanish flu, that's how bad it was. It could be up to 420 million people. 2/3 of the people that died during the Spanish flu, 2/3 They died within, watch this, 14 to 15 weeks. That thing hit, and it hit hard. It hit heavy. And after 14 to 15 weeks, you had between the greatest portion of the people that died within that period. It started in September, it went to December, and in that period, that 100 million, they estimate up to 100 million. Most of them died during that little short period right in there. Now, it lasted like 3 years, but each year, you'd have cases of it, but it wasn't nothing like the first wave and second wave. Matter of fact, I believe they said that the second wave of that Spanish flu was worse than the first, and the first wasn't all that bad. The peak age, you hear a lot about corona, that if you're 65 years old and upward, you are in that peak, that range that it's really taken out. And especially if you have an underlying condition and you're in that age range. But the Spanish flu was hitting those that were 18 to 45 years old. So it was a different dynamic going on. That one attacked the younger generation, 18 to 45-year-olds. And it says that 2/3 of the deaths, again, were in that 18 to 45-year range back then. And New York was the highest or hardest hit with that Spanish flu, just like right now, they the hardest hit. So I'm telling you, there's a correlation. Now, I've talked about, it's God's judgment on them, but do not misquote me. When I say God's judgment, I'm talking about a corrective judgment. I'm not talking about a punishing judgment. God can punish like Sodom and Gomorrah. It wasn't for correction. It was for destruction. And even the surrounding cities, Sodom and Gomorrah, were destroyed. It was a judgment of destruction. But I'm not talking about a judgment of destruction. You take Denver. It was the judgment of God, but it was a judgment for correction. That's why when the people repented, God told Jonah, go tell them, hey, it's going to be all right. Jonah had gone and told him in 3 days God is going to destroy the city. And then at the end of 3 days, after the whole city, they even made the livestock and the animals fat. They didn't feed their livestock. And God said that, okay, the destruction has been lifted. And Jonah, he was upset with God. When you read that story, Jonah did not want to go to Nineveh because he was afraid to tell the people the truth and preach righteousness. That wasn't why he ran away. When you go back and read the story, right at the end, Jonah tells God, see, and I'm paraphrasing, see, then I knew you would do this. I knew you would have mercy. Got me down here telling the folks you're going to destroy them, and then I got to go back and tell them that you're not going to destroy them. I knew that's what you was going to do. That's why Jonah ended up in the great fish. It was because that he was running from not fear of preaching his word that God had given him, but he knew God's love and God's mercy, and just as he feared or he thought, God said, I'm not going to destroy. All right, I'm not going to say much more about the virus. I just want to say that during that Spanish flu, that first wave, kind of second wave, California never did have a death. It was a little later on that they began to have deaths. And this is the worst case in human history that we have recorded knowledge of. And they didn't have any deaths that first round. And we're seeing that now. California is not being hit as hard as New York. And so So there are some parallels there. Um, the difference between the coronavirus and influenza. The reason I say that they are both the flu, because that's basically what they both are. They're not the same virus. So quote me right. I'm not saying that corona is a type of influenza. I'm not saying that. But the symptoms are so similar. Now, more people to this date die from regular flu than from the corona strain, right? But here's the thing about influenza. There's a thing called incubation period. Regular flu, 1 to 4 days. And around about that second day, you're contagious. So you got 1 to 4 days of incubation that you contracted. And around about that second day, you're capable to giving it to somebody, okay? It's contagious. So then around about that 4th day, though, you're starting to be less contagious. And so it dies away a little quicker. And I'll talk about mutating just a second of the genes. The COVID-19, it takes 2 to 14 days to incubate. And around about the 5th or the 6th day, you're highly contagious. And you can give it to someone. So you got a 14-day period. So let me get into this, because this is why when we come back, and I pray to God we can come back on the first Sunday in May. I want to have an abbreviated service. I want to have our full Sunday school at 9:30. I want everyone, please, if you can get here, if you're not working, or if it's any way possible, you can get it. You need to hear the Sunday school lesson. You need Brother Staggers and Sister Beatrice and Brother Tim and Brother George and the contributors in Sunday school, Minister Otis, Deacon Andre, and just others, just so many. Sister Linda and Brother Bynum, they very much are there. And there are others, Sister Staggers and others. You need to be there. And we'll go right immediately. We'll have a short break. We'll go right into our morning worship. It will be abbreviated. And once we conclude, we will not gather and huddle. We'll ask you to file out from the back. You go first. You see what I'm saying? Those in the back is sitting back. You probably came in the middle. You came in toward the end, not toward the end, but later than those that were already up front. And so we'll file out. We'll have a protocol where that we won't break the rules of social distance, and you will not have somebody sitting on the row behind you. For instance, you got your first row, you'll skip a row, you got your second row, third row, skip a row, your fifth row. You see what I'm saying? So we're going to space you, and we'll be able to do that. And then even if we put you in a row that's next to another row, we'll have people on the ends and maybe put somebody in the middle on that empty row. You see what I'm saying? There's a way to stagger the congregation. If you have a mask on, even better. You see what I'm saying? So then, that incubation with the COVID, that's the one it has a long incubation period, 2 to 14 days, 2 weeks. So then, we would not come back to church on the second Sunday. We want to let 14 days, we want that 2-week period to go by. And just in case somebody had no symptoms but had the virus and were in a contagious state where they possibly could give it to somebody. And the only way they can give it to you, if one of the droplets get on you or some way you touch, even if you have on gloves, if you touch something with the droplet is on your glove. So they said, don't touch your face, because see now it's on your face. Now you may have a mask on here, but you know you got forehead and you got eyes. We don't have goggles. We're not wearing shields. This is why I say you're gonna be safe, but you have to be careful not to um, be overly afraid, because this is gonna pass, and you're gonna look back on it, and it won't be, because we're in it right now. It just seems different. Now I have a niece that her auntie on her mother's side, she's passed away from it, and a cousin, I think that aunt's son, her cousin, he's he was given up before the aunt. Now I haven't gotten an update whether he's passed or not. But then she had another cousin that contracted it, and she's now out of ICU, and she's pregnant, and they're looking for her to have a normal birth next month. So it affects different people differently. You can have no symptom, mild symptoms, severe. If you have a severe symptom, you end up in the hospital, you end up in ICU, you end up on a ventilator that's forcing air into your lungs and forcing air out. Your chances of survival, then they diminish. But as a rule, if you get it, 98, over 98% recover. Half of those didn't even know they had it. So this is what we need to know. Arm yourself with that information. Okay. I'm not an what they call it, epidemiologist, epidemic, epidemic. No, it's epidemiologist, So I'm not that. I'm not an epidemiologist, but God knows. And that's why He's told us. He told us, occupy until He comes. And for fear, that servant said, I'm going to just hide what the Lord has given me. And when He come back, I'm going to give Him back what He gave me. So we're going to have to do that. Now, I'm doing this because kind of gotten in the habit of doing it. I don't have any fear. I'm not doing it out of fear. I'm doing it out of what I've been asked to do. All right? Because I want to make sure if I've touched something. I've touched some door handles in here, and I don't know if they had been wiped down, and so you got an itch. I'm scratching my nose, and I'm just not going to make sure. You can use the side of your fingers. But see, if you're scratching, if you got an itch, you got to do it, okay?